I waited so long, too long to get a handle on my nutrition. I spent a lot of years like just ignoring it or trying to work out a bad diet. Now, first of all, we have to start asking ourselves, why does nutrition feel hard? When we think about our foundations of health, nutrition is the one that is most within our control and gives us the biggest return on investment when it comes to our health. First of all, I think in order to make nutrition easy, we have to start asking ourselves, why does nutrition feel hard? A lot of the times nutrition becomes hard because we aren't eating for our specific bodies. We're not a one size fits all thing. So if we're not eating enough for the demand of our body, the body is going to crave more nutrients, but it's going to crave it in the quickest form that it can get it, which is typically a simple sugar of some sorts or a simple carbohydrate. So I want to teach you today how to make nutrition easy for yourself in perimenopause. In midlife, we have multiple energy demands. We have our career, we have our kids, we have our partner, we have our house to handle. We have stress in our life, which is a massive energy demand. And of course, perimenopause is a huge energy demand. In fact, perimenopause is often the straw that breaks the camel's back. And this is where I think nutrition really comes in. So how do we address these things to make things easy? It really has more to do with well, hey there, sister. Welcome back to the Period Whisperer podcast. How are you feeling in your body today? It is 2026. We have kicked off the year already with the January 1st podcast episode. And this is the beginning of a brand new year for you. And I'm so excited that you are here, that you are prioritizing better understanding your body and what's going on in it, and that you're asking questions. I think that's always the first important piece, is that we're not ignoring the fact that we don't feel well, or we're not ignoring the fact that our body's always changing, that we're staying on top of it and trying to better understand what's going on. But how does your body feel after the holiday season? Did you take some time off? Did you relax? Did you fill your cup? Did you maybe fill your cup with too many things that you shouldn't fill your cup with? What happened there? And how are you feeling in this moment? Are you feeling motivated? Are you feeling discouraged already? Are you feeling bloated at all? I am wanting to really give you some clear information. And I think January is one of the best times to talk nutrition, because I think nutrition can be very overwhelming for a lot of people. But when we think about our foundations of health, right? Sleep, movement, nutrition, stress management. Nutrition, I believe, is the one that is most within our control and gives us the biggest return on investment, the biggest ROI when it comes to our health. So I want to teach you today how to make nutrition easy for yourself in perimenopause. Our energy, the tools that our body needs in order to heal, to sleep. Nutrition impacts our ability to sleep. It impacts our ability to move and recover from that movement and have the energy for that movement. And it impacts how stressed out we are and how we experience stress. I think stress management and nervous system regulation can be a really huge one here, but we can't always control what's going on outside of us. Of course, we can manage that, but we really have full control about everything that we choose to put in our own body as adults. So I think that if you invest time in your health, if you only have one thing that you can focus on, this is what I want you to focus on if you haven't nailed it yet. Because again, sleep can feel a little out of our control, especially if our hormones are going a bit bajiggity at this time in our life. Or if you have, some stressful stuff going on, or maybe there's some deeper rooted issue going on in your gut that's really going to throw off our sleep. But if your nutrition is on, often that really impacts blood sugar regulation, which can help that sleep. So if we have anything to focus on, I want to encourage you to get a handle on your nutrition this year if you have not done it. I waited so long, too long to get a handle on my nutrition. I spent a lot of years like just ignoring it or trying to out work out a bad diet or listening to what other people were saying and not really doing the research myself. So I want to teach you today how to make nutrition easy for yourself in perimenopause. There are three key areas and three foundational steps I'm going to teach you on how to handle those areas so that you can actually take action right after this podcast episode this week and start making nutrition easy for yourself. Now, first of all, and we're going to dive right into it today. First of all, I think in order to make nutrition easy, we have to start asking ourselves, why does nutrition feel hard? And this, I think, comes down to three key things. These are our three pillars of why nutrition can be hard so that we can understand how to make nutrition easy with three key steps. Number one, the first reason I think we think nutrition can feel really hard is that, especially in midlife, we have multiple energy demands and only four energy supplies, right? So when you think about all of the areas that we have energy demands in our life, we have like the foundational need of our body to have things to actually function, right? We have that energy just so it can live and breathe and move and do the things we ask of it every day. We have our career, we maybe have our kids, we have our partner, we have our house to handle, we have an athletic demand that maybe we put on our body, we maybe say yes to too many things, right? We push ourselves in different ways. We have stress in our life, which is a massive energy demand. And of course, perimenopause is a huge energy demand. In fact, this energy demand of perimenopause is often that tipping point, the straw that breaks the camel's back, which is why we can feel okay. We're juggling all the balls, we're handling all the things, and whoop, here comes perimenopause, and all of a sudden we're drowning because it is that last straw. And we can look at that as depressing, or we can look at that as a gift where now we are so irritated, we have to change, and we're finally getting to the root cause of some of our issues. And this is where I think nutrition really comes in. Now, where are the four areas of energy supply that are huge? We have sleep. We have functional movement, not fitness. That is a big energy demand that has a good ROI. It should return later and give us, if we're putting on lean muscle, we should get energy from that later. But for now, we have just basic functional movement like walking and yoga. These things calm our central nervous system, add lymphatic drainage, help our brain and gut hormones be happy. Like it just moves our body in a way that we're not holding stress in it at all times. So that's a huge energy supply. And of course, we have pleasure. Pleasure is one of the biggest energy supplies that we can ever imagine. And you know this because if you think about the last time you fell in love, and maybe it was a long time ago, you probably like could have stayed up all night talking and you didn't need sleep. You probably didn't even think about eating. You weren't even hungry because you had so much energy coming in from the pleasure of falling in love. Same goes for like if you go dancing or you go to a concert or you do something that you really love doing, maybe you have a sport that you love to do, time can just woof go by because you're so filled with the energy of the pleasure or the purpose of the thing that you are doing. And that is where I think we is a really underrated area of pleasure for us. But I digress. We're going to come back here to nutrition. So, four areas of energy supply. And that is a reason I think why, again, nutrition feels hard because our demands are so great. And then perimenopause just added another one. And then our supply is kind of limited to these four areas. And I got to tell you, the only one that's a bit unlimited in our energy supply is our pleasure. But pleasure requires time, it requires dedication. I think it requires a lot of other things, external things as well. So we don't always have the time for pleasure. Sometimes we don't have space for pleasure because we're too stressed out. So when we have a huge energy demand and not enough energy supply, then suddenly here is this gap. And that is when the body slips into starvation mode or survival mode. Maybe that's a better thing, survival mode, right? And it's going to start conserving and it's going to start demanding more energy. So a lot of the times nutrition becomes hard because we aren't eating for our specific bodies. We're not a one size fits all thing. So if we're not eating enough for the demand of our body, if we're not getting enough energy from other aspects of our life, the body is going to crave more nutrients, but it's going to crave it in the quickest form that it can get it, which is typically a simple sugar of some sorts or a simple carbohydrate. That is the easiest way for the body to turn and churn energy is in sugars or some type of, again, simple carbohydrate that can turn into glucose in the body. So nutrition becomes really hard if our energy supply and demand is off, because it's going to crave energy to keep you alive. And then it's hard to say no to things that, are easy to eat and maybe quite addictive, like again, sugars or goldfish crackers or chocolate or donuts or muffins or bagels or pastas or things like that maybe are also irritating the body at the same time. Another reason that nutrition can be super hard for us is because we are not eating for our own metabolic type. Now, I've done a full podcast episode on this, so I'm going to give you a brief overview. But your metabolic type, this is my favorite way to look at and understand nutrition. It's, in fact, the only way that ever made so much sense to me when I got it. So, our metabolic type, it's not our metabolism, it is our type, and it is the genetic rate that your body turns food into fuel. And it is different for everyone based on our genetics, based on our ancestry, really. And it starts to make sense because if you've ever wondered why some people can eat a more ketogenic diet, right? Like a more high protein, high fat, very low carbohydrate diet and get amazing results, but someone else feels really kind of nauseous and sick off of it. Or why some people can eat a more plant-based diet, which is historically lower protein, lower fat, much higher carbohydrate, and be all glowy and dewy. And other people can be, plant-based and look kind of sickly. It is because of our metabolic type, because of this rate. So our rate typically falls into either a fast or a slow. And then there's several of us, and I'm one of these that fall into this mixed category. But your metabolic type, again, when we're thinking about the rate that your cells turn food into fuel, if you are someone who turns food into fuel really quickly, think about a fire in that sense. If we're building a fire, we want to, and it's burning and it's churning, we want to feed it a slower burning fuel. A slower burning fuel is going to burn more slowly in the body, giving you a more consistent, longer burning fire or metabolism in this case. So if you are a fast metabolizer or a fast oxidizing metabolism, then you want to look to more slower burning fuels like higher purine meats and proteins, those more red meats, those more dark meats, higher fats. And when we think about the world before we were all blended in this beautiful globalized pot, there are parts of the world, especially in the Great North, if you think of it, where there wasn't a lot of vegetables or grains to make up the carbohydrates. So years ago, people in the Great North really lived off of really rich, dense meat like seal meat and seal fat, and very little carbohydrates like sea vegetables. And their bodies thrived on that because that was what their genetics had evolved and adapted to like. Likewise, on the other end of the scale, if you are a slow metabolizer, a slow oxidating metabolic type, then if you feed that body slow burning fuel, then you're going to feel very sluggish. So in a slow oxidizer, they're actually going to do much better on a more plant-based, higher carbohydrate diet because carbohydrates and lighter proteins actually burn much more quickly. So now you have a very slow fire that you're trying to get started all of the time. And you want to feed it that lighter kindling, that lighter paper to get that fire stoked and get it going. When we go back to being a fast oxidizer, you can think about if you give a fast oxidizer fast burning fuel, like plant-based fuel, they're going to burn through it and be exhausted again, burn through it and get exhausted again. So we want to burn, if you're a lean, more fast oxidizer, maybe your ancestors are from the Great North or so, and that's what they lived off of, then you're going to need those slower burning fuels, like a more ketogenic style diet. But if you are a slow oxidizer, then you're going to need a more quicker burning fuel. And you think about, certainly parts of Asia where, there isn't a ton of meat, where they live off of a lot more fish, where like cheaper meats, and then a lot of rice, a lot of vegetables. So there's different parts of the world where people thrive off of more plant-based versus more ketogenic. And that has epigenetically rolled over into decades and generations of people. So we all have a genetic metabolic type. And that is where we want to consider how to start eating for ourselves. Now, how do we even begin to figure that out? And I'm going to talk about that in the steps. It really has more to do with testing out your macronutrients. But let's get into number 3, why nutrition can feel hard for us. And step number 3 is because we look outside of ourselves for answers. We have historically been taught, especially as women, to seek advice from others for how we should fuel our body instead of tuning into what our body says to us. So, those are the 3 key reasons, right? Too much energy demand, not enough energy supply, not knowing our metabolic type, like not eating for our own metabolic type, and listening to what is working for other people and not listening to what is actually happening inside of ourselves. So, how do we address these things to make things easy? If we know these are the problems, this is why nutrition can feel hard for people, right? We have cravings, we don't have time, we blah, blah, blah. Then we want to kind of come back to each of these steps and have a very specific action step. So if you're struggling with having too much energy demand and not enough energy supply, then what is the logical step here? We have to decrease energy demand and we have to increase energy supply to our body. How do we do that? So we want to look first at our life and think, where can I decrease energy demand that is within my control? Certainly, we can ask for help. Certainly, we can say no to things that we don't have to say yes to. But I think one of the most amazing, most opportune times that we can to decrease energy demand in the name of bringing balance to the body and figuring out our nutrition is actually to pull back on our workouts. So often, and I was one of these people, we are working out and putting an Olympic athletic demand on our body by doing these 45-minute workouts most days of the week, but we're not fueling those workouts like athletes should. So instead of asking your body to do something but not fueling it properly, like that's a great, be no different than trying to drive a car without gas in it properly. We can look to our energy demand and first just let's just pull out our workouts for a little while, not pull out our functional movement. We still need to work on getting those 7 to 10,000 steps in each day, work on our stretching and our flexibility to help expand and create more energy and space in the body. These are ways that we can really quick ways that we can decrease energy demand. You can also start to bring in some breath work, some calm time into your life. And of course, you can look to your nutrition by eliminating foods that cost your body more energy than it provides. So, what does that look like? That means eliminating too much caffeine, eliminating alcohol, eliminating processed foods and processed sugars and gluten, all things that we know provide almost no nutritional value to the body, so no energy supply, and actually cost our body energy demand. So, in the name of decreasing energy demand, I recommend this month pulling back on your workouts, focusing just on walking and stretching. I recommend pulling out those screens at night because that's adding a demand to your body. Maybe doing some reading, winding down early, and eliminating the foods and alcohols and drinks in your life that you know are not providing value to your body. That is how we decrease energy demand. And then we increase energy supply by doing our functional movement, by getting into bed at a really good quality hour, by also doing some quiet time and breath work and finding some joy and pleasure. And of course, by eating consistently, right? Sometimes people often skip meals. I have a lot of clients that skip breakfast or they skip lunch. We really need to make sure that we are fueling that body. So, waking up and eating within 2 hours of waking, eating 4 to 5 hours later, eating 4 to 5 hours after that. And if you have to go longer than 4 to 5 hours, having a snack. Okay, so that is how we decrease demand and increase supply to address the problem of having too many demands in our life and not enough supply. There's a lot of other ways we can do that as well, but these are really simple ways that are within our control. Step 2, how do we address knowing our metabolic type? So this is a trickier one. We can actually, you can actually pay and do a metabolic typing test. There's an amazing book called The Metabolic Type. You can work with someone like me to do that testing for you. But there's actually a really simple exercise you can do at home. And that is simply to, in the afternoon, when when you might find you need a snack, either have a fast burning fuel all on its own, so that would be something like an orange or an apple or a banana, like a fast burning fuel, like a carbohydrate that is a healthy carbohydrate, of course, or having a slow burning fuel like meat, like some beef jerky or something like that. And then pay attention to how you feel 1 to 2 hours after you eat that. This is going to help you understand which way you lean, whether you need a higher purine, higher protein, higher lower carbohydrate diet, or whether you're going to lean more lower fat, leaner protein, higher carbohydrate diet. If you eat the orange and you have this amazing energy and then completely crash right after, you're likely more of a mix to fast oxidizer. If you eat that orange and you feel fine, chances are you're more of a slow oxidizer. On the flip side, if you have that meat or that beef jerky and you feel just kind of yuck and sluggish, really good chance you're leaning more of a slow oxidizer. Whereas if you feel amazing after having like a higher protein snack and more of like a red meat, deep protein snack, so really want to test this, then you know that you're going to lean more of a fast oxidizer. And that's going to help you understand your fuel mixture. If you're more of a fast oxidizer, you want to prioritize protein and fats more than carbohydrates at each of your meals. You still need carbohydrates. Women need at least 100 grams of carbohydrates a day to keep their thyroid happy, and that is critical in perimenopause. So don't be dipping your carbs too low. And of course, after that, like if you're finding that you do better as a slow oxidizer, then you still need to be hitting 20-30 grams of protein, but they can be leaner proteins, and you want to make sure you're getting a more complex carbohydrates, more vegetables in, more, even some starchy carbs that work well for you. So that is how you start to know your metabolic type, playing with your fuel mixture, your macronutrients, your fats, your carbohydrates, and your proteins, and seeing what makes you feel good. Now, found step number 3, we talked about how do we overcome this. We've been taught to look outside of ourselves for answers. So we start to fall to social pressure sometimes, right? We're looking at how our next door neighbor has eaten and lost weight, and we try to eat like that, and it doesn't work for us. And then we start to feel like ashamed of ourselves, which is a terrible spiral for women. We also, go to parties and we don't really know how to eat for ourselves. So then someone's like, oh, come on, have a drink. And so you just do it anyway, right? We fall to social pressure when we don't know ourselves, when we are questioning who we are and what our body needs. So the best way, and you can do this month, you can do this over 2 weeks, although I love 4 weeks of it for women because we have a cycle. So our hormones change. And of course, our blood sugar demands and our blood sugar needs and our hormonal needs of nutrients start to change through the month. So if you can do this for a full month, you are going to nail it. Here's what I want you to do for just 1 month. That's it. 1 month of this entire year. And even just start with a week. Write down what you eat, what time you eat, and how you feel 1 to 2 hours after you eat. I don't want you to track your calories. You don't need to know how many calories you need to eat because your body should tell you. You should feel full and satisfied for 4 to 5 hours if you've eaten enough calories for your body. If you're full for 6 or 7 hours, probably too many calories for you. If you're only full for 2 to 3, not enough calories or not the right fuel mixture. So then you can start to play like, okay, well, maybe what if I add a little bit more protein to this meal? Or a little bit more fats, how do I feel? And then tomorrow, maybe you keep the protein the same and increase, maybe you add an extra piece of sprouted grain toast with nut butter on it. And let's see, how does that make me feel if I have a little bit more fat and carbohydrates? When we pay attention to what our body says to us, we get answers for how to feed ourselves because we're different from everyone else. So, again, the biggest thing that you can do is not track your calories, but just spend the month or even a week tracking what you ate and how it made you feel 1 to 2 hours after. If you eat and then you're not even thinking about eating because you're feeling good and your energy is great, that was probably a great composition of food for you. So you can look at it. How much protein versus carbs versus fats was in that? What kind of protein, fats, and carbs were those? And you can start to repeat and create your own meal plan for yourself. Okay, that was a lot of information, but it is really simple to make nutrition easy if you give it just 1 month this year. If you just dedicate some time to your nutrition over anything else this year, and January is a perfect time to do it. A lot of our friends are doing, dry January anyway, so we're already eliminating that energy demand and that social pressure. You are probably motivated this year to make some changes because it's brand new. So go all in, but look for the data. Find what your data says about you. I think that's one of the areas that we all fall short so that we don't continue is that we're not looking at the analytics of our own body. All right, one more time. Decrease energy demand, increase energy supply. Start to know your metabolic type and track your how your food makes you feel, not your calories. If you are interested in this, if this is something you're like, I want to know more, I did put all of this together in a mini course called The Ultimate Guide to Make Nutrition Easy in Perimenopause for just $24. It's going to walk you through all of this more thoroughly, step by step, and even give you the tracker sheets that I have used for my clients and myself to understand how my food makes me feel. Now, the last thing I will say on this, if you're saying, Bria, I'm already doing these things. I've decreased the demand as best as I can. I've increased the supply. My food makes me feel fine, or I'm doing all the things and it's still not working. I'm still not feeling better. Then you may have an energy supply chain issue. And that's like when we think about, okay, now I've managed my demands, I've created this beautiful energy supply for my body. It feels very balanced, except I'm not feeling great. The energy we take into our body has to get to our body. And sometimes, if our gut is off, if our liver is off, if our adrenals are off, if our thyroid is off, sometimes we're not getting that nutrients the way we should. And that's when it's time to reach out and book a call and dig more deeply into functional lab work. Functional lab work is going to help isolate where the root cause of your problem is. This is how I love to help my clients. This is why they get such great results. So, start with The Ultimate Guide to make nutrition easy for you in perimenopause. If that is not cutting it for you, you know it is worthwhile to invest. Swipe up, book a call. Now you have an amazing tool. It is January. You have all year to crush this. Go out, be more in your life and not just less on a scale. And we'll catch you in the next episode.